Hello, everybody. I am Josh Welsh, president of Film Independent, and welcome to a very special edition of Film Independent Presents. We're very excited to be having a conversation today with the filmmakers and the subject of the documentary Not Going Quietly. Before we get started, I just want to share, before we get started with today's Q&A, I want to give some praise to our loyal supporters. Thank you to our incredible lead sponsor, the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, and thank you, a deep, deep gratitude to our screening partner, Vision Media, without whom none of this would be possible. So with that, I want to get right to welcoming. I'm going to turn off my alerts there. Let me start by welcoming director Nicholas Bruckman. Hello, Nicholas.
Josh.
I'd like to welcome producer Amanda Roddy and executive producers, the brothers Duplass, Mark and Jay. And then a very special welcome to the subject of the documentary, Ady Barkan. Ady, it's so nice to meet you, and thank you for being here. Thank you to everyone for being here today.
Now, I want to have a chance to tell the story about my friend, Ady Barkan.
He's been an activist and an organizer all of his life.
With us today is Ady Barkan. I can't do Ady's story justice. I will let him tell it.
I was diagnosed with ALS today.
The knowledge that I was dying was terrible. But dealing with my insurance company was even worse. I wanted to spend every moment I had left with Rachel and Carl. But then Congress came after our health care. The paradox of my situation is, the weaker I get, the louder I become.
This is a film, you know, I watched this a while ago, and I feel like the world has changed since I last saw the film, and Nicholas had a chance to talk with you about it. But maybe to kick things off, Nicholas, could you start just telling the audience, you know, how you came to do this film? What alerted you to Ady and his work, and what was happening in the world when you and Amanda decided to make the film?
Yeah, happy to, Josh, and thanks to all the Film Independent members out there watching. I do have to give a shout out that Film Independent was a huge part of my career in indie film. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the programs and labs and grants and all that good stuff. So your support went a long way to making this movie happen. And I met Ady in early 2018. Like any good, successful independent filmmaker, I also make commercials to keep the lights on, but we do commercials for things that we really care about: political causes, candidates, the Biden campaign, Black Lives Matter. And I got the call in early 2018 from Liz Jaff, who had a mutual friend in common with me on the Obama campaign. And folks who've seen the film will recognize her as Ady's partner in crime. And she said, I just met this guy on a plane. We're launching a healthcare organization. It was really crazy. Confronted the senator, went viral. We're going to make a move. We're going to make a movement out of it. And I really didn't know what to think at the time. I flew out to Santa Barbara to meet Ady. I thought it was kind of one of those like Sally Struthers ads where somebody's like got an illness and is trying to raise money, and like the tiny violin thing. And when I met Ady, it was just absolutely anything but that. He was the funniest and most resilient and craziest person I knew, and full of all kinds of dirty jokes and foul-mouthed humor, which I later brought to Mark and Jay to prove that this was going to be a really, really funny movie and to get them to support it, even though it's about more than just that. And Amanda and I followed up on that short video, which was really just a launch video, a YouTube ad, and said to Ady and his family, there's something more here. And Ady knew from the encounter that he'd just had with Jeff Flake, which really transfixed the whole country, that his story was powerful, and he wasn't shy about it. So a lot of people ask us, well, why did he agree? And maybe he'll speak to that. But it was actually an easy conversation because Ady really inherently understands that the political is personal. And as a documentary filmmaker, I was so attracted to see what he had done with that short clip. And we wanted to expand on that in a film. And that's where the journey began.
Nicholas, could you just talk a little bit more about that what happened on the plane and the inciting incident that got you involved, and sort of what was the video when you got involved? That had already happened and it had gone viral, or what was fill us in on that?
Yeah, so Ady had been a decade-long activist long before he ever had ALS, and was incredibly influential before that time. What happened, though, is that with Ady's whole life in front of him, a beautiful baby, a beautiful wife, and career in progressive politics, he was suddenly stricken unexpectedly with ALS. And he was in a state of despair, not knowing what would happen with his family, with his career. And then at the same moment, Donald Trump was elected president, dealing him this double blow that the whole country felt. Ady gets on a plane to go to DC to protest the tax cuts, which will cut into healthcare, into Medicare and Medicaid. And he kind of strikes out. Nobody really cares about him. He's in a wheelchair. And on the way back, dejected, he sees Senator Jeff Flake, the deciding vote on this bill, on the airplane. The woman next to him on the plane, who he's never met before, points him out. They go together to have a conversation with him. The woman, Liz, captures it on video, posts it to Twitter. And by the time the plane lands, Ady has become the face of the movement for universal health care and one of the hugest progressive activists pushing back on the Trump agenda. And that's really where the story begins, because they capitalize on that video and launch this whole storytelling movement, taking those kinds of cell phone videos, arming other sick, disabled activists all across the country to tell their stories. And when you asked Josh, like, what attracted me to this story, it was really that. It wasn't Ady. Ady's very attractive, but it wasn't so much him, but it was this idea of arming people with storytelling tools to change the country. Because that's what we do at a macro level as filmmakers. And he was empowering regular people to do it, and they were fucking winning, which was amazing to see.
That's beautiful. Ady, my next question is for you. I want to jump to the other end of the process now, where since the film wrapped and it's come out now theatrically and in all different ways, it feels like we're in a different world politically than where the film ends up. Maybe that's not true. Maybe we're in the same world, but it feels like so much has changed with the election and just where we are culturally and politically. And I'm wondering if you could talk about, where do you see the fight today, if it's different from where it was in the film, and what is your organization, Be a Hero, focused on right now? And how do you see where people can make a real impact today? Sorry, it's a long question.
Before I answer your question, I have one for Jay. Is your Cruella de Vil hair natural?
No, it's not natural. But my daughter recently told me, she said, I'm not ready for you to look older yet, but why does it look so good? So I don't know if I'm going to do away with it. It's not natural,
we gave her $100 to say that, Jay. I didn't want to tell you that.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the boost of confidence. Thank you, Ady.
Ady, I don't know if you wanted to, we can come back on that question if you like.
Trying to load it into his reader. Let's see. Do you want them to move on, Ady? No, he's going to load it into his reader.
Okay, great.
This is Carmen. I'm sitting next to him.
Thank you,
Carmen.
By the way, I am speaking to you from next door to an elementary school. So if any of you hear I'm yelling, that is why.
Ideal Zoom circumstances.
Yeah.
As long as you play one or both of those guitars at the end, Josh,
we'll bust them out. Yeah.
Boom.
Okay.
Bye.
Ready?
Fucking young.
Hi, and thank you for hosting this discussion. These are some really great questions. You're right that our political environment has changed since the movie wrapped, but our work today is just as urgent as it was when Trump was president. It frankly is not enough to win elections. The work of building a more just society must continue after the race is won. So the fight today is to make good on the promise of democratic control of the federal government and bring transformational change for the American people right now. Otherwise, the Trump fascists will come back in 2 years, and we will lose our ability to govern. This past year, my organization, Be a Hero, has been focused on pushing Congress and the administration to deliver on increased access to health care, which was central to why many people voted for Democrats in 2020. We've specifically advocated for full funding for home and community-based services so that seniors and disabled people aren't forced into unsafe nursing homes and care workers can finally get a truly living wage. I welcome people to join us in that fight, but really I encourage people to get involved with the topic they care most about, whether that be climate change or immigration or workers' rights. Whatever it is, join an organization that's pushing for justice, and help them hold politicians accountable to the changes they promised and everyday people.
Thank you, Ady. That's great to hear. And I have to say, it's genuinely inspiring to hear that, because the film ended very, I mean, the film, obviously, there was an unknown future to the film, or the way it ends, in the sense of the work going on. But to hear you articulating in terms of what's happening right now and where people can be engaged and need to be engaged feels like it's great to hear it. And it's truly inspiring to hear the work continue beyond the scope of the film. Amanda, I'd love to hear you talk a bit about the sort of producing the film, and give our listeners some sense of how long you spent on the film and going on the road with Ady, sort of what the production challenges and opportunities were there.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that. I started on the film from the very beginning when we got that initial call from Liz, who wanted to create a short video for Ady's Be Hero campaign. And I think as soon as we started that video, like Nick mentioned, we realized that Ady was someone special and he had a really remarkable story. And we just knew that between him and Liz, they were a force and they were going to do something really cool. And so we were kind of on board from the very beginning and taken with both of them. And then they told us, a month or two into filming these political ads, that they wanted to rent an RV and travel across the country. And we were like, oh my God, that sounds awesome. So we also rented an RV and followed them across the country, and then started making a bunch of political ads with them. And that was an incredible experience. It also came with a lot of producing and creative challenges. Getting 5 people working together in an RV, following a separate group of 5 people who were working on political organizing was really challenging. And they were, Ady and Liz and Helen and Nate, they all had a really rigorous schedule, and we couldn't slow them down. So we had to be really quick and on our feet with all of their planning, trying to figure out what their next moves were and what was important for us to film, not only to help them create political ads, which is what we were doing on the side, as well as kind of going over time to create additional content for this documentary to get a real behind the scenes look and more personal look at what they were doing. And also being mindful of the fact that, Ady's doing a lot of work. His voice was rapidly declining, and we wanted to make sure that he was able to reserve some of that for his family, for the work that he loved doing. And we always had to kind of check in with each other and with their team to make sure that we were getting what we needed for them, for their ads, for the future documentary, and also giving everyone a certain amount of space. So that was definitely a challenge, and just required a lot of communication. But I think one of the benefits of having rented an RV and following them along for about 2 months straight was that we got to build a relationship with them pretty quickly early on, which was pretty critical in terms of setting out to do this larger film, because initially we thought that this would be just about the midterm elections, because we thought this RV road trip was going to be plenty of material. But then, a few months later, Ady started to protest the Kavanaugh nomination. Anna Maria confronted Jeff Flake. And then more and more amazing stuff happened, like Ady testified in front of Congress. He met with almost all of the Democratic presidential candidates, and we had our minds blown by all of that, and realized that we kind of had to continue filming. So we took a lot of our cues from them and kind of tried to adapt the way that we told the story by learning from them and communicating with them and fostering a close relationship so that we could do all of that. So I hope that that rambling kind of somewhat answers your question of some of the producing challenges and how we approach this film, and how the RV road trip actually really helped us in terms of building that relationship that we might have otherwise wouldn't have.
I mean, it's amazing to hear that story of the RVs, and it definitely pays off in the film itself. I feel like, to me, I love a lot of things about the film, but it's on the one hand, it's this story about an activist, Ady, and the issues, the political issues, the moment that we're in, but it's also this intensely personal portrait and story where it's such immediate, intimate filmmaking in the best sense. And Ady, I have a question for you on this. I mean, the film is so personal and intimate, revealing everything you're going through personally and medically, and also with your family. And I'm just curious, now that the film is out, what has your experience been, sort of your takeaway from going through this experience of being filmed in that way? And I'm really curious if you've had the chance to watch the film with an audience.
It's been surreal to see my life, and that of my family, up on the big screen. I watched it with an audience over the summer at the premiere in Los Angeles. That was a really beautiful moment for me and other comrades in the progressive movement to come together, reflect on the last couple of years, and strategize for the journey ahead. So, having the movie out has been really powerful just in terms of absorbing, both privately and publicly, how much has changed for me and my family over the last few years, and how far the entire progressive movement has come since 2016.
Yeah, that's great to hear. To Jay and Mark, I now want to ask you. So, first of all, the Duplass brothers, I feel like during the pandemic, I have watched so much great things that you guys have been out there creating, whether it's language lessons or Lady in the Dale. You make me feel very lazy with everything that you're doing. But I would love to hear, in the midst of everything that you're working on, how you got involved in this project and when you got involved and really what drew you to it.
I guess a couple of years ago, Ady and I have a really close personal friend in common, Bradley Whitford, television's Bradley Whitford, that is, who, came to Mark and me and said, look, there are these two filmmakers who are, making a very grassroots documentary about Ady Barkan. Mark and I mean, essentially it was two people making a film at the core of it. It's something that Mark and I obviously have a lot of experience with and feel a kinship with. And when we found out about the material, and in particular, just this idea that, Trump's presidency and policies were literally threatening Ady's life, it just felt so immediate, so obvious that we wanted to be involved and just help these people tell their story. But like you were saying, the world has changed so much in the last 3 years, I guess, since we started talking to these guys about it. And I mean, I even personally have had, of course, there's like Ady's personal story and his journey with ALS and how that interfaces with the healthcare situation that we've been in for quite a while now that needs so much help. But I think what has emerged, at least for me, is just the importance of fighting for our democracy, which I guess is really the most timeless part of all of this for me personally. I don't know about you, Mark.
I mean, I definitely knew when I heard about the story I wanted to support. I honestly felt a little insecure about coming on because the movies that Jay and I have traditionally executive produced in the past, we have felt like we're here to help. We know exactly what to do and how to make low budget narrative films. That's what we do. What we don't exactly know how to do is make this incredible grassroots political documentary on a subject as complicated as healthcare, which we don't have the education and experience with to come on and say, this is exactly how you do it, right? And I remembered a friend of mine told me something that I love, which is when you want to get involved, just swing the sword that you have in your hand. Don't worry about the one that you don't have. And Jay and I talked about it and we were like, okay, Nick and Amanda and Ady are the experts here. And what we can offer is, a platform, whatever we have to get this movie out there. And we can give them, luckily, some of the cash we've been able to make in this industry and support them and use our mouthpiece to help get it out there. And it was really emboldening to me to know that I could be helpful without being an expert in this area and just use the pieces that I had. And it's been really, just personally very enriching for me to be able to be a part of something like this where I'm not the expert, but at least I can throw a couple of cogs in there. And it's taught me a lot about how I want to move forward as a collaborator with other projects.
Can I ask Josh about working with these guys?
Yeah, please.
Great. Well, I just want to say that, in addition to the cash and great hair that these guys added to the project, working with them was really integral to me creatively, because it was really important to, obviously when I, grew up watching, Puffy Chair and these guys' films, but also because I really wanted this to have a driving cinematic and really narrative quality, which I hope we achieved. There's no, despite these guys not being experts, myself neither, there's no experts in the film talking about healthcare, except for Ady, of course. There's no talking head interviews. And there's a lot of comedy and uplift in the film. And I really want audiences to know that, because it's difficult subject matter. But working with these guys, we did a lot of rough cut screenings in their office in LA. And part of all of our conversations were about how do we bring like the joy and celebration and humor. And really when we started working with Ady, that's what the film was. It wasn't just like, he's this great activist. The first thing we ever filmed with him, Ady had his shirt off, he's topless. We were like, hadn't rolled a single frame. And Ady's like, all right, let's do the thing, with his like nipples out. And that was the moment for me that I was like, there's a movie here. And so in working with Mark and Jay, a lot of it was about how do we reinforce those narrative qualities to the film. And that is something that they're experts in, and I think really helped shape the cut into what it became ultimately.
That's great. Yeah, the humor and the tone of the film really do set it apart from so many documentaries that could have done something much drier and more formal. And I feel like it just brings this to life in a way that serves the story overall and the deeper subject matter too. Mark, I love that line of, I'm going to get it wrong, but use whatever sword you have in your hand. That's a great line that I feel like embodies the activism of Ady and everyone involved, but also of independent film, right? That's how we work as independent filmmakers. You use the sword you have.
I've always loved that spirit that, it's very intimidating to take that first step into something. And I think that when you watch what Ady has done, when you watch what, his comrades in arms have done in this field, there is a kinship that Jay and I felt spiritually to us being 23 and 27 years old and not knowing how to become filmmakers and realizing that we were just going to have to sort of cascade ignorantly down the mountain and figure it out as we went. And I think if there's anything I want to encourage to people watching this or who are inspired by this, it's, please don't feel like you need to be an expert or even particularly well adept at what it is that you're passionate about. Raise your hand, and there will be people around you who can point you in the right direction. All it really takes is the desire. And I think I let that stop me for a little while. And I'm glad that I learned through this film that it really shouldn't.
Yeah. So I have another question for you, Ady, which is it kind of dovetails off what Mark was just saying, but I feel like today there's so much talk of our political system being fundamentally broken, or democracy is, going away. And it's easy to give in to despair in this moment. Partly I think out of exhaustion with everything that's going on, but also just despair over it. It seems like things are really broken in a way that maybe they haven't been before. And I would love to hear you talk about that. How, to put it baldly, how hopeful or unhopeful do you feel about the democratic process today? And I think I know the answer to this, but do you see avenues for real and positive change given everything that's going on right now?
That's an interesting question. It's true that our democracy is in grave danger. Republicans are actively trying to prevent people of color from voting. A group of insurrectionists violently overtook the Capitol, and people are struggling to access basic resources like health care. Yet I have hope. But hope, as Rebecca Solid says, is not passive, but rather a spur to action. Hope is not a lottery ticket that we cling to, it's a hammer that we use in an emergency to break the glass, sound the alarm, and spring into action. Hope is not a state of mind, it's a state of action. So yes, I have hope, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for real change where we need to channel that hope. We can pass a Green New Deal to save the planet, enact Medicare for all to guarantee everyone the health care they deserve, rewrite the rules of our economy to make it fairer for workers, and more. But it will all depend on the American people rising to the challenge. We are the authors of that collective future. We hold the pen.
Wow. Thank you. I love that. The idea that hope is an action, not just a feeling. That's amazing. Well, Nicholas, I want to end with a question. Well, it's really for anyone, but I'll direct it to you, Nicholas, which is, I was on your website the other day for the film. It's a beautiful website, and it's like, it directs you where you can see the film, but also where you can do so much more. So I guess this is piggybacking on what Ady was just saying, but for the film, how do you see it? What life do you want the film to have right now? Obviously you want people to watch it, but beyond that, I feel like you're trying to drive people into action. So can you talk about that and kind of the goal that you have with this film in terms of impact?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's been an amazing journey with the film so far this year. It was supposed to come out last year, but as with so many things, it was delayed. Ady had his ticket to come out to the Tribeca Film Festival in 2020. And of course, that didn't happen. Instead, we spent the whole year working on the film. And when it ultimately came out, we actually thought, oh, this has to come out during the Trump administration, has to sway the election. But as Ady said in this conversation, that actually it's not enough to win elections. You have to hold the politicians accountable. And that's what he's doing right now. And that's what we hope the film will support. So one thing we want people to do at home is just to watch the movie, tell their friends if they didn't see it tonight at Film Independent. It's available now on all the VOD platforms. We've been getting amazing recognition from the awards of various platforms, including Ady being recognized as most compelling living subject of a documentary, to which he said it's better than the alternative, which we agree. And, we want that word to get out because ultimately people in the industry seeing the film will help it kind of raise the prominence of it. But the ultimate goal is not to win awards. The ultimate goal is to drive Ady's movement forward. We're so grateful that Ady's with us today doing this work and more powerful than he was when we met him. We never could have expected, as Amanda was saying, that we'd have an audience with Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, who were trying to get Ady's attention, to get his approval and his buy-in to the work that they were doing. And Ady has a very powerful sword to swing right now. And so we want people to get involved in these fights for democracy at large that we've been talking about, but you can also join Ady's movement right now at joinady.com and be part of the Be a Hero movement, which is doing the work that it was doing in the film. You can get involved in the fight for Medicare for all, get involved in the fight for the home care funding to be included in the Build Back Better infrastructure bill, which will keep people like Ady in their home and out of nursing homes. This fight is going on right now, both at the kind of local and legislative level right now. And then we have this decade-long battle to win, hopefully less, to finally win Medicare for all. Part of the work that Ady has done has made it so that today a majority of Americans support a universal healthcare program. So it's all just about closing that gap between what our elected representatives are doing and what we want through bird dogging, through activism, and through joining Ady in this movement. So those are some of the ways that folks can get involved and see the film.
Amazing. Well, I want to thank you all for being here today. Talking to you, I mean, watching the film again and being able to talk to you it leaves me, first of all, so excited about documentary film and what it can do. And the like thinking back to how the film came together when there was that Jeff Flake video to where you are today, and knowing the impact that this film can have in amplifying Ady's work and even beyond that is just really inspiring about the power of good storytelling. And on a personal level, I just want to say I love when good people make good movies, right? This is an amazing group of filmmakers and storytellers and activists. And so to anyone watching this, please do spread the word about the film, drive people to the website, and let's continue on and see where this film takes us. But thank you all so much for being here today. And Ady, it's really an honor to meet you. Thank you for being here as well.
Thanks so much, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark and Jay, for all the support.
Thank you.
Possible.
Talk to you all soon.